Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hornets Daily presented by Fan Arc, your one stop shop for all things Charlotte Hornets. I'm Vance Ballard, but as you know, friends call me VB, and today I'm a little confused, I'm a little scared, and it's all because I'm optimistic about what the Hornets are doing in the offseason. Unfamiliar feeling, unfamiliar territory, but I think I'm starting to like it a little bit. I'm getting a little bit excited, and that feels kind of good here in July as we creep towards the Summer League. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment. We'll get into those comments more further along the line down in some future videos. We'll chat about what you guys want to chat about, and we'll get into some conversations that way as well. But it was another very busy day in the Queen City as another new face was brought in, and in a surprising move, a face we thought we had said goodbye to, they will be returning to Charlotte as well. What does that extension mean for the rest of this roster and specifically the surplus now at the guard position? We'll take a look at that. We'll talk over it and see what that may look like going forwards. We'll also take a look at the overall roster, the rest of the current players as it sits here now just a couple days into July and into free agency, and we'll try to predict what, if anything, is left to do before the season kicks off and we get further along into things. Folks, it's another jam-packed show, so as usual, there's no need to beat around the bush. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it. As Jeff Peterson continues his push to be the busiest man in the league Monday, he was able to make another move, bringing in Pat Connaughton as well as two future second-round picks from Milwaukee in exchange for Vasiljevic. The deal makes financial sense for the Bucks, and it helped free up the money they needed to sign Miles Turner, as we all saw that big deal go through on Monday as well. But that doesn't mean Charlotte is not still a winner in the deal also, because I firmly believe that they are bringing in Connaughton, another 6'5", two-guard, who can play the three as well, and adds another veteran and experienced voice in the locker room. And not to get too crazy, not to get too wild with things here with some statements, but in similar kind of thunder-like fashion, Pat brings a ring into the locker room, some very valuable experience having played in extremely important and high-pressure games in the NBA playoffs. He played over 20 minutes in every game of the 2021 NBA Finals on the way to a championship with the Bucks. He scored double figures in 3 of the 6 of those games during that series. And while, yes, that does feel like it was decades ago now, the experience gained during that run, as well as other playoff runs that he was a part of while in Milwaukee, will help Pat come in and be an important piece in his own right towards shifting the franchise culture that Charles Lee and Jeff Peterson have been talking about. Adding someone who knows what winning feels like and knows how to do it can be good and go a long way towards shaping the culture back to the winning ways that Peterson and Lee have been talking about all offseason. Connaughton, who's 32 years old, is coming off a season in which he only played 41 games, but was able to post numbers higher than some of his career averages during that span. He shot 46.9 from the field, 46.9% from the field last year, and 31.2% from behind the three-point line. That was a little bit lower than his career average, but the 46.9 from the field overall was a few ticks higher than what he has put in his first 9 years in terms of overall career average. Connaughton, again, he went undrafted and has still managed to carve out a 10-year NBA career. As I mentioned, he is an NBA champion as well, got a ring with Milwaukee. And he's just a glaring example, another one of how serious Coach Charles Lee, Jeff Peterson, something I've already mentioned here in the video, but how serious they are about the type of guy that they're trying to bring in and they're trying to draft and build this team out of. Pat is a very savvy veteran with a high basketball IQ, something, again, phrases we've heard in press conferences throughout the pre-draft process, throughout as we get into free agency. And again, we're here with Pat Connaughton coming in via a trade. Now, obviously, the undefeated and always victorious Father Time has caused Pat to not be able to rely on his athleticism or playmaking ability, the kind of other two phrases that we have heard, buzzwords that we've heard come from Jeff Peterson this offseason. As quite as much as he once did, Pat Connaughton could at one point be described as a playmaker or have someone who has some athletic ability, but at 32, going into the season where he'll turn 33, that is probably safe to say that's taking a bit of a down kick. But one of the main goals of the offseason, as we know, was addressing shooting. The Hornets have done that in abundance in a more than satisfactory form throughout the offseason and to Monday with the addition of Pat Connaughton, the shooting percentages will only increase. Now, I'm not saying all this to say that we should expect Pat to come in and give 20-plus minutes or lead the game in scoring, lead the team in shooting, anything like that. But in a league that's desperate for NBA-level talent coming off the bench, Connaughton should fill that role. He meets those requirements and should fit nicely into a semi or even actual prominent role player position with the Hornets, coming off the bench again with his ability to have some leadership in the locker room and some experience on the court running with guys who may be a little younger or part of this core that is, as we know, a very young and undeveloped group, raw talent guys that someone like Connaughton can come in and maybe kind of rope off and bring the reins in a little bit. It's also worth noting that there is always a chance Connaughton could have been acquired with the intent of adding him to a package later on down the line to grab some other guys. That again, he was brought in with 2 future picks as well, so those may become assets along with Connaughton if the Hornets decide to go that route and maybe move him for something a little bit bigger on the inside. That could also be a possibility as well. It doesn't seem that way that's the route the Hornets want to go, but again, it's worth mentioning that is always a possibility, especially this time of year with someone like Jeff Peterson as active as he's been. It is definitely not out of the realm of possibility to think that maybe Connaughton never even dons a Hornets uniform, much like we talked about when Vasa was traded back to the Hornets from the Suns. We mentioned that he may realistically never actually wear a Hornets uniform or put it on, and we found out today that is going to be the case. It wouldn't be nearly for as many tumultuous reasons with Connaughton, but it wouldn't be out of this world surprising if he actually ends up never playing for the Hornets. Not saying that is going to be the case, not necessarily hoping that's going to be the case, just hitting all of our points here, dotting our T's and crossing our I's, that would be something that is potentially possible. Should that happen, it'll be what it is. If not, I believe that this trade, much like all of the other ones and all the other moves in general so far that Peterson has made, this one has potential for success and to end it, even potentially turn into being something described as a home run of a deal for the Hornets. Speaking of home runs and deals and new moves for the Hornets, another hit here was that one that they were already aware of on the roster, a player who showed a lot of promise last year before an injury. Tre Mann was re-signed today. He signed a 3-year, $24 million extension to stay with the team on Monday. And this was a move that surprised quite a few people, to be honest, myself included, as if you watched the last video, we basically did a full-blown goodbye. I don't want to say tribute, but we said our goodbyes. We accepted that it was going to be time to part ways with Tre Mann after bringing in Colin Sexton, and at the time what looked like ceasing talks with him to try and get an extension done, but turns out today that was an incorrect way to think. Mann has been re-signed and will return to Charlotte. I personally am a big fan of keeping Tre Mann around, especially considering, like I said, he was on pace for a career year, getting mentions and whispers in the Sixth Man of the Year conversation before his injury last year. So if at any time you can keep a guy with numbers like that, with promise like that, who clearly wants to be here as he has seen what all's going on around him. He's aware that Sexton is coming in, but he clearly wants to be in Charlotte. Anytime you can keep a guy like that, it's it shows promise, and again, his game in general shows promise and potential to develop and be a bright spot and a key piece coming off the Hornets bench this coming season. Now, whether or not all of these things are good news or bad kind of remains to be unseen. There are a lot of similarities with some of the players that the Hornets have been bringing in, specifically position name, with now the re-signing of Mann and the addition of Connaughton. It no doubt gives the Hornets a rather large surplus at the guard position. Several new faces, several draft picks have come in, and now in abundance are guards and wings on the Hornets roster. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just going to be very interesting now to see how Coach Lee handles having so many backcourt players on the roster and figuring out how to plug and play and put those guys in the right places, in the right lineup fashion, so that they can be the most productive and not only get the most out of themselves, but get the most out of each other to continue to develop and get the best outcome for the season, for the team, for the season. Obviously, that is a victory. No doubt, though, it has become the way of the league for teams to be guard and wing heavy. Again, I said it's not necessarily a bad thing that the Hornets have set that up this way so far this offseason. It is, again, a trend, and it seems that the Hornets have no issues following that trend. And again, if it's not broke, don't fix it, and that's kind of what's happening in the league right now. No issues with them continuing to follow that trend, and I know you guys are beyond tired of hearing me say Aldama, the word Aldama. So I'm not going to be standing on the table for him today in this video, but I do want to reiterate that I feel strongly that the Hornets need to, and I feel like they will make one more move at the center position. I'm not sure where it's going to come from or what it's going to be. Peterson doesn't have an issue surprising us, as you can tell from Monday's moves, but I do feel strongly that just to anchor and fully solidify this roster going forwards and really kick that optimism we talked about in the beginning of the video into overdrive and into high gear, I think that another move at center is imminent and on the way, and that will be an important piece again for the Hornets, a decision that Peterson and Lee need to get right when making. So as we sit now I've mentioned early in July, just a couple days into the month, right here before the 4th of July, a couple days into free agency as well, I think it could be important, it could be useful to take a look at the Hornets roster as it sits right now and just see, kind of flesh it out a little bit, see how it's shaped up, and try and put my Jeff Peterson shoes on and maybe see what's left for Charlotte to do before we get to Summer League and in terms of building this roster going into the actual season itself. So as we look at it, if games started tomorrow, the Hornets would more than likely be trotting out LaMelo, Colin Sexton, Orkan, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, and Diabate as the starters at the 5 position. That would leave Ryan Kalkbrenner, Trey Mann, Sion James, Liam McNeely, either Khan or Colin Sexton, Mason Plumlee, and as of Monday, Pat Connaughton coming off of the bench for now, Josh Okogie, who another name that's going to have to be closely watched throughout the rest of this free agency period and offseason now with the additions of the other guards. Does this re-signing and payment of Trey Mann, does that mean a goodbye for somebody like Okogie? That's going to be interesting. That's up in the air. That's something that we'll have to take a look at as well. But that, like I said, so that's what the lineup would look like right now. If the game started tomorrow, that's more than likely the starting 5. Those are the bench. And when I say that out loud, I'm going to be honest, it makes it pretty easy for me to see where the optimism is coming from. The young and raw talent listed in those names and on that roster hints at a change in culture as well as style of play the offensive firepower on that list, the shooting ability of some of the guys that are named there are things that the Hornets have needed desperately and not really been able to say and have not had going into the last few regular seasons coming out of the most recent off seasons. And in order, again, things the Hornets needed desperately, and in order to make the league and the fan base know that they're serious about this culture change, they have done exactly that by bringing these new moves in and filling out the places that they needed to fill out. Obviously, a couple still linger. There's still plenty of questions on the defensive end, but answers will come through Coach Lee and this as they develop over the summer. His ability to develop young guys into defensive players in the NBA, get more out of the defensive abilities of the veterans that he's been bringing in, and have, again, as I mentioned, these guys playing not just for themselves but playing for each other, trying to accomplish all the same goal. And I think that is where, as now Lee has a little bit of experience in Charlotte under his belt, I think as he continues to develop his culture from a coaching standpoint, that's what it's going to be focused on, the development and a hard-nosed defensive effort from Charlotte. And as I mentioned, while I still think several times, I know I'm hitting on this, maybe beating this dead horse a little bit, but I still think the center position needs addressing before the excitement going into the season reaches its childlike level. And like the rest of the Eastern Conference has begun to certainly take notice of what Peterson and the rest of the front office are doing in Buzz City, so have the fan base and everyone else involved. It's not just me that's optimistic, it's everyone I'm talking to outside here of the videos, friends, family, people I run into, whoever it may be. The buzz, for lack of a better word, is palpable for the offseason coming out of Charlotte, and what the expectations are. They're higher maybe than they have been in recent years, and I think that is a very good thing. There's a lot of promise being shown. Things are in the right hands. The front office, the new regime, seems to be doing all the right things, saying all the right things, making all the right moves, and Charles Lee feels like he is the guy to take this young core to the next level, have them develop into what they can be, a promising NBA team, and maybe even a group of guys that we are talking about playoffs come next season. We'll see. Again, a lot of questions left to be answered. Answers will come, that we do know. Well, folks, another slammed show's coming to an end here. As always, want to thank you so much for watching along. And don't forget to smash that subscribe button. Again, leave a like and a comment so we can discuss things in the chat. Some of you guys' topics and thoughts we'll talk about. We'll get to those further down the line in the videos here. But that'll do it for Hornets Daily, presented by FanArc. As always, I'm VB, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Keep buzzing.